Hello. In this course, we will walk through what the 7-1500 firmware is, why you might need to update it, and how to download and safely execute the firmware update on your Siemens S7-1500 CPU. Let's get right to it. What is a PLC firmware? Under the hood of the PLC, the firmware acts like an operating system, controlling the PLC's internal operations, the system's built-in functions, and running the user program. The firmware enables the PLC to handle hardware modules, support timed and interrupt-driven operations in the user program, process diagnostics and alarms, and communicate with engineering tools and other devices. It ensures stability and security, protecting the system's runtime, and it provides feature support, bringing new fixes and improvements, and keeping the CPU compatible with your engineering tool version. The first reason to update the 7-1500 firmware is to ensure compatibility with your current TIA Portal version, especially if the CPU is an older model. Otherwise, you won't be able to run your program using your current TIA Portal. Updating the firmware also fixes the discovered bugs, improves system stability, and enhances protection against security vulnerabilities. It also adds support for recent hardware and new system features. To download the firmware of an i7-1500, you will need to create a Siemens account. Once you've created your account, you will be able to download the firmware for your specific PLC article number, and that is compatible with your TIA Portal version. The firmware article number must match your PLC article number. You may need to complete a form for export restricted software before you can start the firmware download. To download the firmware, open your search engine and type in your CPU series, followed by the word firmware. In this video, we are updating the firmware of an i7-1518. So we need to open the link to the Siemens portal and look up the CPU's exact article number. Once located, click on the Files link. We need to fill the form as the firmware falls under Export Restricted Software. Once approved, we can start downloading the firmware file. At the end of the download, the file is unzipped and ready for the updates. As a disclaimer, this tutorial is provided for educational purposes only. Follow the standards, regulation, the manufacturer procedures, and your company's internal procedures. Firmware update must be performed only by authorized personnel. Before starting the firmware updates, make sure to have an up-to-date PLC project backup, a stable power supply, and that the plant machines are in a safe, stopped state. To apply the firmware updates, we go online with the PLC, then right-click and select Online and Diagnostics. In the functions, we select firmware update, and on the online data, we can double check the article number and the current firmware version. To start the update, let's browse to the downloaded firmware file. Once the new firmware is loaded, it will show its version and the article numbers of the suitable modules. Running the update starts the process that might take a few minutes. At the end of the update, the firmware activation starts. At the end of the activation, the online connection is interrupted. So let's go online again to check the current firmware version. In this video, we've covered what PLC firmware is, why it should be updated, the key requirements and precautions, and how to download and update the correct firmware for your hardware and TIA portal version. Thank you for watching and keep going forward.